Hey everybody, it's Simply Super Dave coming at you with another entry in our top 10 films of all time according to Simply Super Dave himself. That's right, these are my top 10 all-time favorite movies. Seen them so many times, it's not even funny. We're on number 4. That's right, we're all the way up to number 4 in this countdown. Let's go over our top 10 so far, please. Number 10, coming in from 1992, True Romance, starring Christian Slater and Patricia Arquette. Number 9 was American Beauty from 1999. Or was it 2000? No, 2000 was Gladiator. 1999, Best Picture winner, American Beauty. Great movie without a doubt. I could care less about the Kevin Spacey, whatever. Kevin Spacey's a great actor. Shitty human, great actor. All right, number 8 was The Big Lebowski, and it popped in here coincidentally right before I did the countdown because I was going to put Titanic in that spot, but Titanic didn't even make my top 10. All right, number 7 was The Great Forrest Gump, Best Picture winner from 1994, the greatest year in cinema movie history. That's right. I had to go with Forrest. Forrest Gump was a trendsetter as far as like using special effects in a normal style movie, not a sci-fi movie or an action movie, but just a regular type of movie. For historical value, the special effects really worked. It made Forrest Gump an unbelievable story. Number 6 was the culmination of a bunch of films, and of course this film would have to have the storyline arcs that come complete in it, and that would be Avengers Endgame, syncing up everything that started from Iron Man back in 2008, I want to say it was 2008, when Iron Man came out, all the way up until Avengers Endgame, which I believe was in 2019, 2020? That was 2019. Anyway, that was number 6. Number 5, which was our last movie we just talked about, was The Shawshank Redemption. Also from 1994, the movie that Forrest Gump beat out for Best Picture. Frank Darabont directed this great film, and if you haven't seen it, it of course stars the wonderful Tim Robbins and the iconic Morgan Freeman in his Oscar-winning role, one of his Oscar-winning roles. Great movie, Shawshank Redemption. Definitely recommend that movie. That brings us to number 4. Number 4 is going to be also from the year 1994. This movie is directed by Alex Poryas. I believe it's Poryas, if I'm not mistaken. It's spelled differently than it sounds, but he also directed Dark City, if you haven't seen that, another dark, kleptic movie. But this movie in particular was the James OBarr graphic novel, The Crow. That's right, The Crow. The Crow is probably the one film on this list that I have probably seen more than any other film. Maybe, possibly. It's hard to say. It's really, it's up there though. It's up there. I have seen The Crow literally hundreds of times. I know at least 200 times I've seen this movie. But The Crow is based off a graphic novel by James OBarr. It's a great comic book novel. Very gritty, deals with drugs, sex, language. It's very rated R. The story contends with a couple that was killed on the eve of their wedding day. So it was the night before their wedding, Halloween night, and they were killed, all right? And supposedly the crow, as the story goes, can bring a soul back from the dead to put something right and to be reunited with the one they love in the afterlife. Thus, the premise of the story. Of course, hero of the movie was played by the great Brandon Lee. Brandon Lee is the son of the great martial artist icon Bruce Lee, who died mysteriously while filming Enter the Dragon back in the day. Always been a mystery about why Bruce died, and some say it was a hit. You can dig that little rabbit hole if you like. Well, what added to that conspiracy is the fact that Brandon, his son, in 1993, when the film was being, made, he was shot and killed on set during the filming of The Crow. Now, they have pretty much done all the scenes they needed to do. They were in the non-makeup phase, which means they were doing a lot of shots where he was just himself without any of the makeup and stuff on him. The scene in particular is a memory scene where he walks in on them attacking and raping his girlfriend. And then they turn around and then shoot him in the doorway. Now, if you remember the movie, when he comes in, a knife is thrown at him, and he hits the ground. And it's done from a first-person point of view, so you don't actually see Brandon. So that actually was him walking in, and he actually got shot in the doorway. Now, what happened was the prop gun had a projectile in the barrel. Again, yeah, I know. This just happened recently with Alec Baldwin on a movie set. So this is nothing new, right? So Brandon was shot with a projectile, not a bullet. They didn't realize till after the scene was cut because, of course, he was shot. He was at, how do you know if he's not acting? And he died many hours later at the hospital and never recovered. And so then, of course, the movie was finished. Using a lot of technology at that point in time, like we discussed about Forrest Gump being a year. 1994 was a very trend-setting year that really pushed things in a direction. But yes, they did use like CGI technology for the first time, where he's putting on the makeup and looks into the mirror, and the close-up at the first time where he is in full makeup and gear in the movie, all CGI'd on top of a body double. The artistic style, the story, everything about Brandon's life, his death, the fact it was about someone coming back from the dead to put the wrong things right, it's just made the movie very eerily successful. And it is very artistically beautiful. And it's very dark. It's definitely a rated R film. But it's number 4 on my top 10 list. And it's there for a reason. And it's not just because Brandon passed away. If Brandon would have lived, I would still love this movie just as much. I kind of wonder how much, a little bit differently it would have been done. Would there have been a sequel and with him in it? And yes, there is sequels to this movie. My recommendation is don't watch any of them. Sorry, but the original stands alone, has no connection in my mind to any of those other films. There is a great comic book series, and The Crow did, of course, expand from the basic story, but I sincerely, highly recommend checking out the original graphic novel, which I do own, and checking out the wonderful, artistic, dark. It's really like watching a black and white movie, but it's not in black and white. But the film style to it is just unbelievable. Very hardcore. One of the first films to really take a soundtrack and make it its own album, with hits from a very early time between 9 Inch Nails, The Cure, so many different people on that album. Stone Temple Pilots, so many people, and it's 1994, so this was the beginning. We got a train rolling through, folks. Oh, you hear the old train rolling. Anyway, that's going to be the number 4 entry on our top 10 films of all time, according to moi, Mr. Simply Super Dave himself. These are my top 10 movies. These are not what I would say are the top 10 best films of all time. Like if I had to go guess what would be the amass top 10 movies of all time, this isn't it. We'll have to do a different list for that one, and we wouldn't take all week to do it, or a couple weeks or whatever. I'm just taking my time with this because I really wanted to make sure I put out my top 10 personal favorite movies of all time. And number 4 is very close to my heart. Probably one of the best love stories in an action movie you'll ever see in your entire life. Once again, Brandon Lee, directed by Alex Poryas, and graphic art, comic book, the writer, James OBarr. Wonderful cast. Ernie Hudson's even in it. But Brandon Lee, without a doubt, will live forever because of this movie. Without a doubt, check out The Crow from 1994, the greatest year in cinema movie history. All right, folks. That's going to do it for this short episode of Top 10 Films of All Time. I promise by tomorrow I will have a new talking episode of Staying Super with Simply Super Dave back up. This past week has been a little rough and hard, and I haven't had the time, but more importantly, I didn't have the spark I needed to really talk about anything. And I'm not going to just put out something just to put it out. So when I feel like the right topic starts to boil in my head, I'll hit the play button, and we'll get this thing recorded for you. And we'll be dropping that hopefully sometime by tomorrow afternoon at noon. Lunchtime, I'll have you something to listen to tomorrow. I promise you that. But for now, if you have some time, go look up what platform it might be on and give The Crow a good watch. Best to watch it at night, folks. Definitely a night flick. Peace.